Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back roughly 4,000 years to experience something most of us can barely imagine: waking up in a Bronze Age farming village where your daily survival depends on reading weather patterns, appeasing temperamental gods, and hoping your neighbors don't decide you're hoarding too much grain. Picture this: you're stirring from sleep on a straw mattress that's probably crawling with more life forms than a Petri dish, the air thick with smoke from dying embers, and somewhere outside, a rooster that definitely doesn't know about snooze buttons is announcing that your 16-hour workday is about to begin. You probably won't survive this lifestyle for more than 30 years, assuming you make it past childhood diseases, random infections, or that sketchy-looking mushroom your cousin swears is safe to eat. The Bronze Age wasn't exactly known for its work-life balance, but hey, at least you didn't have to worry about checking emails or sitting in traffic. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere cozy tonight, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where this little time-traveling community spans across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first pale light filtering through your doorway isn't just morning. It's your cue to keep the cosmic order intact. You roll off your straw sleeping mat, joints protesting against the hard-packed earth floor, and immediately tend to the central hearth that's been smoldering all night. This isn't just about warmth. In Bronze Age belief systems, letting the sacred fire die completely could invite malevolent spirits or anger the household gods who protect your family. You blow gently on the coals, adding dry kindling with practiced movements that would make any modern camping enthusiast jealous. The smoke stings your eyes, but you've learned to work around it. Everyone in your village has that slightly perpetual squint that comes from a lifetime of indoor fires without proper ventilation. Your first task involves checking the household shrine, a small clay figurine representing your family's protective deity, usually positioned near the hearth. You might sprinkle a few grains of precious barley or pour a tiny amount of milk as an offering, whispering prayers for the day's safety and productivity. These morning rituals weren't optional spiritual practices. They were insurance policies in a world where random disasters could wipe out everything you'd worked for. Mainstream archaeology tells us that Bronze Age communities were deeply religious, with household shrines found in virtually every excavated dwelling from this period. Here's where things get interesting. Some scholars believe certain Bronze Age farming communities practiced a form of dream divination, where the eldest family member would interpret the previous night's dreams to predict the day's agricultural tasks. Historians still argue whether these dream interpretations were genuine spiritual beliefs or elaborate ways of making practical farming decisions seem divinely inspired. But clay tablets from similar periods suggest that weather prediction through dreams was taken seriously enough to influence planting schedules. Water collection comes next, and this isn't a simple matter of turning a tap. You grab your family's precious bronze or ceramic water vessel, probably worth more than most of your other possessions combined, and make your way to the village, well, or nearby stream. The walk gives you a chance to assess the weather, check for signs of approaching storms, and mentally plan your day's tasks based on what Mother Nature seems to be plotting. Bronze Age farmers were essentially meteorologists by necessity, reading cloud patterns, wind directions, and seasonal indicators with an accuracy that would impress modern weather forecasters. The quality of your morning water can literally determine your family's health for the entire day. Without understanding germ theory, Bronze Age villagers developed surprisingly sophisticated water purification techniques, including ceramic filters and settling techniques that removed visible impurities. You've learned to avoid water that tastes off, looks cloudy, or comes from sources where animals have been drinking upstream, not because you understand bacteria, but because generations of trial and error have taught your community which water sources lead to the dreaded stomach sickness that can kill within days. Back at home, you begin preparing the morning meal while other family members slowly wake. The hierarchy of rising is carefully observed. Elders wake first, followed by adult males, then adult females, and finally children. This isn't arbitrary social structure. It reflects practical survival priorities in a community where every person's contribution matters. But some contributions matter more when resources are scarce. You measure out precious grain for porridge, calculating carefully, because running out before the next harvest means starvation, not a trip to the grocery store. The morning routine also includes a quick inventory of your family's possessions and livestock. You count the sheep, check that the goats haven't wandered off during the night, and examine your small vegetable garden for signs of pest damage or theft. In Bronze Age villages, losing livestock wasn't just an economic setback. It could mean the difference between surviving winter and becoming another cautionary tale whispered around evening fires. The distribution of morning porridge reveals everything about Bronze Age social structure in ways that would make modern sociologists take furious notes. You watch as the family patriarch receives the largest portion, served in the finest clay bowl your household possesses, followed by other adult males in descending order of age and importance. The women serve themselves after the men, and children receive whatever remains, unless they're boys approaching manhood, in which case they might jump ahead of their sisters and mothers in the pecking order. This isn't cruelty. It's survival mathematics in a world where the strongest adults must remain capable of defending and providing for the entire family unit. Your breakfast consists mainly of a thick porridge made from barley, wheat, or whatever grains your family managed to grow and store successfully. The consistency ranges from soupy gruel, when grain supplies are running low, to a thick, stick-to-your-ribs paste, when the harvest was generous. Modern nutritionists would probably cry looking at this meal. It's heavy on carbohydrates, light on protein, and completely lacking in what we'd consider a balanced breakfast. Bronze Age bodies adapted to extract maximum nutrition from limited variety. And this morning meal provides the sustained energy needed for hours of physical labor under whatever weather conditions the day decides to throw at you. Seasoning your porridge requires creativity, and whatever trade goods your village has managed to acquire. Salt is incredibly precious, worth its weight in bronze in many communities, so you might add wild herbs, dried berries, or if your family is particularly prosperous, a tiny amount of honey. The truly wealthy families occasionally enjoy porridge mixed with milk from their own goats or sheep, creating a creamy texture that feels luxurious compared to the standard water-based version. Historians have found evidence that some Bronze Age communities traded extensively for exotic spices, suggesting that even 4,000 years ago, people were willing to go to considerable lengths to make their food taste better. The breakfast conversation revolves around task assignments for the day, and these discussions follow protocols as rigid as any modern corporate meeting. The family head announces priorities based on seasonal needs, weather observations, and community obligations. Adult males typically receive assignments related to heavy fieldwork, animal husbandry, or craft production. Women's tasks usually center on food preparation, textile work, childcare, and maintaining the household's complex web of social relationships with neighboring families. Children old enough to contribute receive age-appropriate chores, but their primary job remains learning through observation and gradually increasing responsibility. Here's a fascinating detail that archaeologists have pieced together from food residue analysis. Bronze Age families often shared communal eating vessels, but the order of eating from shared bowls followed strict social hierarchies. Historians still argue whether this practice developed from practical resource conservation or represented deeper spiritual beliefs about maintaining cosmic order through daily rituals. But evidence suggests that violating these eating protocols could result in serious social consequences within the community. Your family's morning discussion also includes planning for potential emergencies, because Bronze Age life required constant contingency thinking. Will today's weather allow for outdoor work, or should everyone focus on indoor tasks? Are any community members sick enough to require assistance? And can your family spare the labor? Have you noticed any signs that raiders, wild animals, or natural disasters might threaten the village? These conversations happen quickly and efficiently. Bronze Age people couldn't afford long philosophical debates when survival depended on making dozens of critical decisions before most modern people finish their first cup of coffee. The breakfast cleanup reveals another layer of social organization. Specific family members are responsible for washing bowls, banking the fire properly, and securing food supplies against theft or spoilage. Everyone knows their role without discussion, and performing these tasks correctly demonstrates competence and reliability to the rest of the family. Messing up simple household chores could affect your status within the family hierarchy, influence marriage prospects, or determine whether you receive support during illness or injury. As breakfast concludes, you notice the subtle ways information flows through your family unit. Adult males share news gathered from other men during previous day's work. Women exchange information collected during their social networks, and children report observations that adults might have missed. This informal intelligence gathering helps your family stay informed about everything from weather patterns and crop conditions to village politics and potential threats. Bronze Age survival depended on information as much as physical strength, and families that remained well informed had significant advantages over those who operated in isolation. The transition from breakfast to morning work happens gradually but purposefully. Family members don't simply scatter to their tasks, they coordinate departures to maximize efficiency and safety. Some work requires multiple people. Other tasks are performed better in solitude, and certain jobs need to happen in specific sequences to avoid wasting effort or resources. By the time your family disperses for the day's labor, everyone understands not just their own responsibilities, but how their work fits into the larger survival strategy that keeps your household functioning in this unpredictable Bronze Age world. You grab your bronze-tipped plow and head toward fields that represent your family's most valuable asset and greatest vulnerability simultaneously. These carefully cultivated plots contain the difference between prosperity and starvation, between having surplus grain to trade for luxury goods and watching your children's faces grow gaunt as winter stretches toward spring. Your bronze tools mark you as relatively prosperous. Many farmers still work with wooden implements tipped with stone, making your metal plow blade a status symbol that neighbors notice and occasionally resent. The morning sun catches the bronze, creating flashes of light that might have inspired ancient beliefs about farming tools possessing magical properties. The soil beneath your feet tells stories that modern GPS-guided farming equipment could never appreciate. You read the earth like a complex manuscript, understanding which patches drain well after rain, where clay deposits make digging difficult, and which areas consistently produce the healthiest crops. This knowledge comes from generations of observation, passed down through families who learned through trial and error which agricultural techniques work in your specific microclimate. Bronze Age farmers were essentially soil scientists, plant biologists, and meteorologists rolled into one profession, developing expertise that took lifetimes to master. Your planting schedule follows rhythms older than written history, coordinated with lunar cycles, seasonal weather patterns, and community-wide agricultural calendars. The timing of every farming activity, from initial soil preparation through final harvest, can mean the difference between abundance and famine. Plant too early, and late frosts destroy your seedlings. Plant too late, and early winter kills mature crops before harvest. These decisions require understanding dozens of environmental variables. Without access to weather forecasts, almanacs, or agricultural extension services. You basically gamble your family's survival on your ability to predict what nature plans to do over the next several months. Mainstream archaeology reveals that Bronze Age farmers practiced surprisingly sophisticated crop rotation techniques, alternating grains with legumes to maintain soil fertility and prevent plant diseases that could devastate monoculture fields. Your ancestors discovered that certain plant combinations improve overall yields, reduce pest problems, and help soil recover from intensive cultivation. This knowledge developed through centuries of careful observation and community sharing of successful techniques, creating agricultural wisdom that modern organic farmers are rediscovering and calling revolutionary. Here's where things get really interesting. Some Bronze Age farming communities apparently practiced a form of companion planting that included deliberate cultivation of beneficial insects and birds to control crop pests. Historians still argue whether these practices represented sophisticated ecological understanding or religious beliefs about maintaining harmony with nature spirits. But archaeological evidence suggests that Bronze Age farmers achieved remarkably stable yields without chemical pesticides or modern agricultural technology. Your workday involves backbreaking physical labor that would hospitalize most modern office workers within hours. Plowing, planting, weeding, and harvesting require strength, endurance, and pain tolerance that contemporary people can barely imagine. You work bent over for hours at a time, hands raw from tool handles, muscles aching from repetitive motions, sweat stinging your eyes as you race against weather patterns and seasonal deadlines. There's no concept of ergonomic tools, workplace safety regulations, or 8-hour workdays. You work until the job is finished or darkness makes continued labor impossible. The social aspects of fieldwork create community bonds that extend beyond individual family units. Certain agricultural tasks require coordinated group effort, like major plowing projects, large-scale harvesting, or constructing irrigation systems that benefit multiple families. These cooperative work sessions involve elaborate social protocols about contributing fair shares of labor, sharing tools and equipment, and distributing the benefits of group efforts. Getting along with your neighbors isn't just about being sociable. It's about ensuring access to the community cooperation that makes larger agricultural projects possible. Water management represents one of your most critical and challenging responsibilities. Without modern irrigation systems, you must work with natural rainfall patterns, seasonal flooding, and whatever water storage techniques your community has developed. This might involve digging channels to direct rainwater toward crops, building small dams to create temporary irrigation ponds, or carrying water by hand during dry spells. Some Bronze Age communities developed remarkably sophisticated water management systems, including underground channels and ceramic pipe networks that distributed water across multiple family farms. Pest control requires creativity, persistence, and whatever folk remedies your community has developed through trial and error. You might scatter aromatic herbs around vulnerable plants, construct barriers from thorny branches, or organize community hunts to reduce populations of crop-damaging animals. Some Bronze Age farmers used trained birds or small mammals to control insect pests, creating early versions of biological pest management that modern agriculture is now rediscovering. The constant battle against creatures trying to eat your crops before you can harvest them adds another layer of stress to agricultural work that already operates on razor-thin survival margins. The chief's house dominates your village's skyline not just through size, but through the subtle ways it influences every social interaction you navigate throughout the day. This isn't a democracy where everyone gets equal voting rights. Bronze Age village politics operate through complex hierarchies based on age, gender, family lineage, wealth, and demonstrated competence in essential skills. You understand your place in this system instinctively, reading social cues that determine when to speak, when to remain silent, and how to approach people whose decisions could dramatically affect your family's fortunes. Modern anthropologists would find your village's power structure fascinating and probably somewhat horrifying by contemporary standards. Your social status depends on multiple factors that intersect in complicated ways. Family reputation carries enormous weight, being descended from successful farmers, skilled craftspeople, or respected elders provides advantages that last for generations. Personal achievements matter too. Exceptional skill in agriculture, craftsmanship, or conflict resolution can elevate your standing regardless of birth circumstances. Wealth measured in livestock, grain stores, bronze tools, and trade goods translates directly into political influence and social respect. Gender roles are strictly defined, but not necessarily powerless. Women often wield significant behind-the-scenes influence through kinship networks and specialized knowledge. The village council consists of elder males from the most established families, but their decision-making process involves consulting with various specialists and interest groups before reaching conclusions. Decisions about agricultural timing, resource allocation, trade negotiations, and conflict resolution require input from people with relevant expertise. The village might consult the oldest farmers about planting schedules, experienced crafters about trade opportunities, or respected women about family disputes. This isn't exactly representative democracy, but it's not pure autocracy either. It's pragmatic governance focused on making decisions that keep the community alive and functional. Mainstream historical evidence suggests that Bronze Age villages operated through gift economies alongside barter systems, creating complex webs of obligation and reciprocity that maintained social cohesion. You might provide grain to a neighbor during their family's illness, expecting future reciprocal assistance rather than immediate payment. These arrangements require keeping mental track of who owes what to whom, creating social networks that function as informal insurance systems against individual disasters. Getting excluded from these reciprocal relationships could mean facing emergencies without community support. Here's a quirky detail that archaeologists have discovered through burial analysis. Bronze Age villages often had individuals whose social roles don't fit neat categories, people who might have been early versions of diplomats, mediators, or cultural specialists. Historians still argue whether these individuals represented formal political positions or informal community roles that developed around particular personalities. But evidence suggests that successful villages found ways to institutionalize conflict resolution and intercommunity communication. Marriage negotiations reveal the intersection of personal relationships and political strategy in ways that would make modern dating apps seem refreshingly simple. Marriages create alliances between families, combine resources and labor pools, and determine inheritance patterns that affect the village's long-term stability. Your parents probably started considering your marriage prospects when you reached adolescence, calculating which potential unions would benefit your family's social position, economic security, and political connections. Romance might develop within these arranged relationships, but love definitely isn't the primary consideration driving matrimonial decisions. Village justice operates through public forums where disputes are aired, evidence is presented, and community leaders render decisions based on precedent and practical considerations. There's no formal legal code, no professional lawyers, and definitely no appeals court, just community standards enforced through social pressure, economic sanctions, and occasionally physical punishment. Being found guilty of theft, adultery, or antisocial behavior could result in anything from public shaming and economic boycotts to exile from the village, which in Bronze Age terms often meant death by exposure or starvation. The village's relationship with neighboring communities requires diplomatic skills that balance cooperation with competition for limited resources. Your village might maintain trading relationships, marriage connections, and mutual defense agreements with some neighbors, while viewing others as potential threats or rivals. These intervillage politics influence everything from trade opportunities and marriage prospects to the likelihood of raids or conflicts that could devastate your community. Village leaders must constantly assess changing relationships and adjust strategies to maintain your community's security and prosperity. Social mobility exists, but operates within strict constraints that reflect practical survival priorities. Exceptional talent, strategic marriages, successful trading ventures, or outstanding service to the community can improve individual or family status over time. However, dramatic social changes happen slowly and require sustained effort across multiple generations. The village's stability depends partly on maintaining predictable social structures that people understand and accept, even when those structures create inequalities that modern sensibilities would find objectionable. The sun reaches its peak as everyone converges toward the village's central gathering area, carrying wooden bowls and whatever contributions their families can spare for the communal midday meal. This isn't just lunch, it's the daily social hub where information flows, alliances form, disputes simmer, and the community's collective wisdom gets shared through seemingly casual conversations. You balance your family's contribution carefully, knowing that bringing too little suggests poverty or selfishness, while bringing too much might imply boastfulness or create obligations you can't sustain. Bronze Age social navigation required the diplomatic skills of a UN negotiator combined with the resource management expertise of a disaster relief coordinator. The bread that forms the centerpiece of most midday meals represents hours of complex labor involving multiple family members and sophisticated technology that most modern people don't fully appreciate. Your morning began with grinding grain using stone querns that require significant upper body strength and technique to operate effectively. The flour then needed careful mixing with water, wild yeast cultivation for leavening, and baking in clay ovens that demand precise temperature control achieved through experience rather than thermometers. Each loaf represents a minor technological achievement that required mastering metallurgy for tools, ceramics for cooking vessels, agriculture for ingredients, and engineering for oven construction. Sharing food involves elaborate social protocols that communicate respect, establish hierarchies, and maintain community harmony through symbolic gestures. The eldest community members receive choice portions first, followed by family heads, then other adults in order of status and age. Children eat after adults, and guests from other villages receive special consideration that reflects your community's reputation for hospitality. These aren't arbitrary customs. They're survival strategies that ensure the most essential community members remain well-fed and capable of leadership during crises, while demonstrating to outsiders that your village possesses the prosperity and social organization necessary for reliable trading partnerships. The midday gathering serves as your community's primary news distribution system, combining verified information with speculation, gossip, and strategic disinformation in ways that require sophisticated social intelligence to navigate effectively. You hear reports about weather patterns observed by farmers working distant fields, updates on livestock health from herders, news about neighboring villages gathered by recent traders, and rumors about everything from potential raids to promising marriage prospects. Separating reliable information from wishful thinking or deliberate deception requires understanding each speaker's motivations, track record for accuracy, and position within the community's social networks. Mainstream anthropological research reveals that Bronze Age communities used communal meals as forums for collective decision-making, allowing community leaders to gauge public opinion and build consensus around important choices. Your village might use the midday gathering to discuss upcoming planting schedules, evaluate trade proposals, or address conflicts that could affect community stability. These discussions happen through informal conversations rather than formal debates, but experienced community members can read the subtle social dynamics that indicate emerging consensus or growing divisions around particular issues. Here's a fascinating detail that food residue analysis has revealed. Bronze Age communities often shared exotic foods during communal meals as displays of trade connections and wealth. But these luxury items were distributed according to complex social rules that reinforced existing hierarchies, while allowing lower status individuals to experience prosperity vicariously. Historians still argue whether these practices represented genuine generosity or sophisticated social control mechanisms. But evidence suggests that communities with strong sharing traditions experienced greater long-term stability than those with more individualistic approaches to resource distribution. The children's behavior during communal meals provides informal education about social expectations, cultural values, and adult responsibilities that shape their development in ways no formal school system could match. They observe how adults interact, practice appropriate responses to social situations, and gradually learn the complex web of relationships that define their community. Young people approaching adulthood might receive subtle testing through increased responsibility for serving, organizing, or contributing to the meal, with their performance influencing their reputation and future social prospects. Trade negotiations often begin during midday gatherings, as traveling merchants display goods and community members evaluate potential exchanges. Your village might examine bronze tools from distant craftsmen, consider ceramic vessels with unfamiliar decorative styles, or sample exotic foods that could indicate new trade opportunities. These preliminary discussions involve assessing quality, negotiating prices, and determining whether proposed trades offer genuine benefits or represent attempts to offload inferior products on unsuspecting rural communities. Bronze Age merchants could be as shrewd and manipulative as any modern salesperson, requiring buyers with equivalent sophistication to avoid disadvantageous deals. Midday meal also serves as a subtle community health monitoring system, allowing observant members to notice changes in individual behavior, appearance, or appetite that might indicate illness, injury, or personal problems requiring intervention. Bronze Age communities couldn't afford to lose productive members to preventable health issues, so informal social surveillance helped identify problems early enough for effective community response. This system required balancing helpful concern with respect for privacy, creating social protocols that allowed assistance without undermining individual dignity or family autonomy. You pause your fieldwork to observe the village potter shaping clay with movements that seem almost magical, transforming formless earth into vessels that could determine your family's survival through their ability to store grain, carry water, or cook food safely. This craftsperson represents something revolutionary in human development, economic specialization, that allows individuals to focus entirely on perfecting specific skills rather than splitting time between multiple survival tasks. Bronze Age villages that supported specialized crafters enjoyed significant advantages over communities where everyone remained generalists. But this specialization also created new forms of interdependence that required sophisticated social organization to manage effectively. The potter's workshop reveals technology that would impress modern ceramic artists. Despite operating without electric wheels, digital temperature controls, or chemical glaze formulations. The clay preparation alone involves complex processes of sourcing appropriate materials, removing impurities, achieving proper moisture content, and adding organic tempers that prevent cracking during firing. The pottery wheel, operated by foot power, requires years of practice to master, and the kilns represent sophisticated understanding of combustion, heat distribution, and atmospheric control that rivals contemporary ceramic engineering. Each finished pot represents hundreds of hours of accumulated expertise passed down through generations of specialized knowledge. Bronze working demands even more impressive technical mastery, combining metallurgy, chemistry, and engineering in ways that most modern people couldn't replicate without extensive education and specialized equipment. The village smith must understand ore selection, smelting temperatures, alloy compositions, and forging techniques that transform raw copper and tin into tools capable of revolutionizing agriculture, warfare, and craftsmanship. Creating a single bronze axe involves mining operations, fuel procurement, furnace construction, and metalworking skills that represent some of humanity's most sophisticated technological achievements during the Bronze Age period. Your community's textile production showcases another form of specialization that combines artistic creativity with practical engineering to create products essential for survival and social status. The village weaver transforms plant fibers or animal wool into cloth through processes involving fiber preparation, spinning, dyeing, and weaving that require different skill sets and specialized tools. The finest textiles serve as trade goods, status symbols, and diplomatic gifts that establish your village's reputation in regional networks, while everyday cloth provides protection against weather conditions that could prove fatal without adequate clothing. Mainstream archaeological evidence demonstrates that Bronze Age craft specialization created the first true market economies, with standardized products, quality controls, and pricing systems that facilitated long-distance trade relationships. Your village's crafters produce goods specifically for exchange rather than immediate family use, calculating labor investments against potential profits and adjusting production based on demand from trading partners. This represents a fundamental shift from subsistence economics toward commercial thinking that laid groundwork for more complex economic systems. Here's where things get really intriguing. Some Bronze Age communities apparently developed early forms of intellectual property protection, with craft guilds or family workshops maintaining trade secrets and limiting access to specialized knowledge through apprenticeship systems that controlled competition. Historians still argue whether these practices represented conscious economic strategies or traditional methods of preserving cultural knowledge. But evidence suggests that successful craft centers actively protected their technological advantages against copying by rival communities. The apprenticeship system creates pathways for social mobility while maintaining quality standards that protect the reputation of specialized crafts. Young people with talent and motivation can potentially escape agricultural labor by demonstrating aptitude for pottery, metalworking, or textile production. But the training process requires years of unpaid labor and absolute dedication to masters who might prove demanding, abusive, or incompetent. Successful apprentices eventually establish their own workshops, but failed ones might find themselves too old for agricultural work and lacking marketable skills, creating a high-stakes educational system with dramatic consequences for individual futures. Trade relationships extend your village's influence and prosperity far beyond what local resources could support, connecting your community to regional networks that span hundreds of miles and multiple cultural groups. Traveling merchants bring exotic goods, new technologies, and information about distant communities, while taking away your village's specialized products and local knowledge. These exchanges involve complex negotiations about prices, quality standards, delivery schedules, and credit arrangements that require sophisticated understanding of market dynamics and human psychology. The economics of craft specialization create new forms of wealth and status that compete with traditional measures based on agricultural productivity and land ownership. A skilled bronze smith might accumulate more valuable possessions than successful farmers, while renowned potters could command respect that rivals community elders. This emerging economic complexity requires new social protocols for managing relationships between traditional agricultural leaders and increasingly influential craft specialists, creating tensions that your village must navigate carefully to maintain stability. Quality control becomes essential when your community's reputation depends on the reliability of craft products traded to distant partners who can't easily return defective goods or demand immediate replacements. Craft specialists develop testing methods, standardized measurements, and production techniques that ensure consistent results, while the community monitors craft quality to protect trade relationships that benefit everyone. Poor craftsmanship doesn't just affect individual artisans. It can damage your village's entire economic network and threaten prosperity that supports non-specialized community members. The village children absorb knowledge through constant observation and gradually increasing participation in adult activities, creating an educational system that would make modern child development experts take careful notes, while probably raising some serious concerns about workplace safety regulations. Your community can't afford formal schools, professional teachers, or standardized curricula. Instead, children learn through immersion in daily survival activities, picking up essential skills through trial and error under adult supervision that ranges from patient guidance to harsh correction, depending on how critical the task and how dangerous the mistakes. This hands-on education produces remarkably competent young adults, but the learning process involves risks and responsibilities that contemporary parents would find absolutely terrifying. Boys and girls begin life with similar treatment, but gender-based differences emerge gradually as children demonstrate capacity for increasingly complex tasks. Male children typically gravitate toward activities involving physical strength, tool use, and livestock management, while female children focus more on food preparation, textile work, and social relationship management. These divisions aren't arbitrary cultural preferences. They reflect practical survival strategies that maximize each person's contribution to family and community welfare based on physical capabilities, social expectations, and economic specialization that keeps Bronze Age communities functioning effectively. The informal apprenticeship system begins early, with children as young as 5 or 6 years old assigned simple tasks that teach basic skills while contributing modestly to family productivity. Boys might start by carrying tools, feeding small animals, or helping with simple agricultural tasks that build strength and familiarity with farming techniques. Girls often begin with food preparation activities, basic textile work, or childcare responsibilities that develop skills essential for managing future households. These early assignments seem like play to the children, but they're actually sophisticated training programs that gradually build competence in essential survival skills. Mainstream anthropological research reveals that Bronze Age communities developed surprisingly sophisticated child development philosophies, recognizing different learning styles and adjusting educational approaches based on individual children's talents and interests. Some children showed aptitude for craft specialization, others demonstrated leadership potential, and some displayed the observation skills and memory necessary for maintaining community knowledge about agriculture, weather patterns, or social relationships. Communities that successfully identified and nurtured these diverse talents enjoyed significant advantages over those that tried to force all children into identical developmental paths. Here's a fascinating detail that skeletal analysis has revealed. Bronze Age children's bone development patterns suggest they engaged in diverse physical activities that created stronger, more resilient bodies than most modern children develop through organized sports and structured exercise programs. Historians still argue whether this superior physical development resulted from better nutrition, more varied activity patterns, or genetic factors But evidence clearly shows that Bronze Age children who survived to adulthood possessed remarkable physical capabilities that reflected their demanding educational environment. Gender role education involves complex social lessons about power, responsibility, and community expectations that prepare children for adult relationships and decision-making responsibilities. Boys learn about male hierarchies, leadership expectations, and the social protocols that govern interactions between men of different ages and status levels. Girls absorb equally sophisticated knowledge about female networks, household management, and the diplomatic skills necessary for maintaining family relationships and community harmony. Both genders receive education about cross-gender interactions, marriage expectations, and parenting responsibilities that will shape their adult lives. The transition from childhood to adulthood involves formal ceremonies and informal recognition processes that mark young people's readiness to assume full community membership with adult rights and responsibilities. These coming-of-age rituals vary between cultures, but they typically involve demonstrating competence in essential skills, receiving community acknowledgement of maturity, and accepting adult obligations that include marriage eligibility, military service for males, and full participation in community decision-making processes. Failing these transition requirements could result in extended childhood status that affects marriage prospects and social standing. Educational content includes extensive training in social intelligence, conflict resolution, and community relationship management that prepares children for the complex interpersonal dynamics that characterize Bronze Age village life. Children learn to read subtle social cues, understand power dynamics, navigate family politics, and contribute to community harmony through appropriate behavior and strategic relationship building. This social education happens through observation, direct instruction, and immediate feedback when children make mistakes that could affect family or community welfare. The preservation and transmission of cultural knowledge represents one of education's most critical functions, ensuring that essential information about agriculture, craftsmanship, medicine, and community traditions passes accurately from generation to generation. Children with exceptional memory and storytelling abilities might receive special training as knowledge keepers, responsible for maintaining oral traditions that preserve community wisdom about everything from seasonal timing and weather prediction to social protocols and spiritual beliefs. These individuals serve as living libraries in communities without written records. Safety education combines practical training with cultural indoctrination about community values and expectations, teaching children to avoid dangers while reinforcing social norms that maintain community stability. Children learn to identify poisonous plants, dangerous animals, unstable structures, and social situations that could lead to conflict or community disruption. This safety training emphasizes both individual survival and community welfare, preparing children to make decisions that protect themselves while contributing to the collective security and prosperity that keeps Bronze Age villages functioning despite numerous environmental and social challenges. The afternoon sun bears down mercilessly as you tackle the season-specific tasks that determine whether your family thrives, survives, or faces the grim prospect of winter starvation. Bronze Age life operates on biological rhythms that make modern scheduling seem almost luxuriously flexible. You can't reschedule harvest time, postpone animal birthing seasons, or negotiate with weather patterns that could destroy months of careful work within hours. Your afternoon labor adapts constantly to seasonal demands that shift throughout the year, creating a complex calendar of interlocking activities that requires both long-term planning and immediate responsiveness to changing conditions that could upend your best-laid survival strategies. Late summer afternoons find you racing against time to complete harvest activities before weather conditions destroy crops that represent your family's primary insurance against winter death. The wheat and barley must be cut at precisely the right moment, too early, and the grain lacks full nutritional development. Too late, and storms or early frosts could devastate entire fields. Your bronze sickle flashes rhythmically as you work through rows of grain, each stroke representing calories that could mean the difference between your children surviving, until spring or joining the anonymous ranks of Bronze Age casualties, whose bones archaeologists occasionally discover in positions suggesting malnutrition-related deaths. Thrashing and winnowing require techniques that transform agricultural products into storable food, supplies through labor-intensive processes that would make modern combine harvesters seem like science fiction. You spread harvested grain on hard-packed earth and beat it with wooden flails, separating edible seeds from inedible chaff through repetitive motions that leave your arms aching and your back screaming for relief. The winnowing process involves tossing grain mixtures into the air during windy conditions, allowing lighter chaff to blow away, while heavier seeds fall back into collection baskets, a technique that requires perfect timing and weather cooperation that you can't control or predict. Animal husbandry demands afternoon attention that combines veterinary medicine, agricultural science, and economic planning in ways that would challenge modern livestock specialists with advanced degrees and sophisticated equipment. Your sheep and goats require constant monitoring for diseases, parasites, and injuries that could kill valuable animals or spread through entire herds. Without antibiotics, vaccines, or professional veterinary care, you rely on traditional remedies, careful observation, and community knowledge passed down through generations of trial and error experimentation. A single sick animal could represent the difference between having wool for winter clothing or facing cold weather with inadequate protection. Maintenance tasks consume significant afternoon labor as you repair tools, buildings, and equipment that face constant wear from intensive use and harsh environmental conditions. Your wooden plow handles split from repeated stress. Bronze tools develop chips and cracks that require skilled metalworking to repair. And thatched roofs need constant patching to prevent leaks that could ruin stored grain or make living spaces uninhabitable. These maintenance activities require diverse skills ranging from carpentry and metalworking to textile repair and basic engineering, making every Bronze Age adult a multi-skilled technician capable of maintaining complex systems without specialized repair services. Mainstream archaeological evidence reveals that Bronze Age communities developed sophisticated food preservation techniques that extended the availability of nutritious foods throughout seasonal cycles when fresh produce wasn't available. Your afternoon work might involve smoking meat, drying vegetables, fermenting grain products, or preparing other preserved foods that provide essential nutrition during winter months when fresh food sources become scarce or completely unavailable. These preservation methods require precise timing, specific environmental conditions, and accumulated knowledge about food safety that prevents spoilage or contamination that could kill entire families. Here's a detail that residue analysis has uncovered. Some Bronze Age communities apparently developed early forms of crop insurance by maintaining multiple small storage facilities rather than single large granaries, reducing the risk of total food loss from fires, floods, or pest infestations. Historians still argue whether this practice reflected conscious risk management strategies or traditional approaches to food security. But evidence suggests that communities with distributed storage systems experienced better survival rates during environmental disasters or social disruptions that could devastate centralized food supplies. Textile production occupies many afternoon hours as you process plant fibers or animal wool into the threads that will eventually become clothing, blankets, or trade goods essential for family survival and economic prosperity. The processing involves multiple stages, including cleaning, combing, spinning, and preliminary weaving that require different tools, techniques, and skill levels. This work often involves multiple family members working together, creating social bonding opportunities while producing essential goods that protect against weather conditions and provide materials for trade relationships that bring exotic goods or essential resources to your community. Water management tasks require afternoon attention as you maintain irrigation systems, repair water storage facilities, or adjust water distribution methods based on seasonal conditions and community needs. During dry periods, you might spend hours carrying water from distant sources to keep essential crops alive, while during wet seasons, you focus on drainage projects that prevent flooding damage to fields or buildings. These water management activities require understanding local geography, weather patterns, and engineering principles that communities developed through generations of experience with their specific environmental conditions. Fuel collection becomes increasingly important as shorter days and colder weather approach, requiring systematic gathering of wood dried dung, or other combustible materials that will provide heat and cooking fuel throughout winter months. This seemingly simple task involves complex decision-making about sustainable harvesting practices, fuel quality assessment, and storage techniques that prevent moisture damage or theft. Running out of fuel during winter could mean death from exposure, making fuel collection a critical survival activity that requires careful planning and execution throughout the warmer months. The afternoon also includes time for community service activities that maintain village infrastructure, support neighbors facing difficulties, or contribute to collective projects that benefit everyone. You might participate in road maintenance, help construct new buildings, assist with harvest activities for families with insufficient labor, or contribute to community defense preparations. These activities strengthen social bonds while ensuring that community resources and capabilities remain adequate for collective survival during emergencies or challenging periods that require coordinated responses. The approaching darkness triggers a complex sequence of food preparation and storage activities that represent your family's primary defense against the ever-present threat of starvation that haunts Bronze Age communities like a persistent shadow. Your evening work focuses on transforming raw agricultural products into preserved foods that will sustain your family through winter months when fresh food sources disappear, and your survival depends entirely on whatever you managed to produce, process, and store during the productive seasons. This isn't meal prep for convenience. It's life or death food security management that requires sophisticated knowledge about preservation techniques, storage methods, and rationing strategies that could determine whether your family survives until spring. Grain storage involves technology and techniques that would impress modern food scientists. Despite operating without refrigeration, chemical preservatives, or pest control methods that contemporary agriculture takes for granted. Your family's grain containers represent significant investments in ceramic technology, woodworking, and metalworking that create sealed environments, protecting precious food supplies from moisture, rodents, insects, and theft. The storage vessels must be perfectly waterproof, pest-resistant, and accessible enough for regular monitoring, while remaining inconspicuous enough to avoid attracting unwanted attention from neighbors or raiders who might consider your food stores worth stealing or fighting over. The evening meal preparation reveals the complex mathematics of Bronze Age nutrition management as you calculate portion sizes that provide adequate nutrition while ensuring stored foods last through unpredictable winter conditions. Your family can't simply eat until satisfied. Every meal represents calories subtracted from finite supplies that must stretch across months of cold weather when agricultural production stops completely. This rationing requires understanding each family member's nutritional needs, energy expenditure, and growth requirements, while maintaining morale and preventing the social tensions that could develop when hungry people compete for limited food resources. Meat preservation occupies significant evening time as you process animal products through smoking, salting, drying, or fermentation techniques that prevent spoilage without refrigeration technology. A single large animal represents enormous food value, but it also creates urgent time pressure to preserve meat before bacterial decay renders it inedible or potentially deadly. Your preservation methods must remove moisture that supports bacterial growth while maintaining nutritional value and palatability that makes preserved meat acceptable for months of consumption during winter survival periods. Mainstream ethnographic research reveals that Bronze Age communities developed sophisticated fermentation techniques that not only preserved foods, but actually improved their nutritional value through bacterial processes that created vitamins, broke down complex compounds, and enhanced digestibility. Your evening work might involve managing fermentation vessels containing grain porridges, vegetable mixtures, or dairy products that undergo controlled bacterial activity, producing foods with enhanced nutritional profiles and extended storage life. These fermentation processes require precise timing, temperature control, and contamination prevention that represents advanced biotechnology achieved through traditional knowledge. Here's a fascinating detail that chemical analysis has revealed. Bronze Age communities apparently understood that certain plant compounds could inhibit bacterial growth and extend food storage life, leading to sophisticated spice and herb usage that served preservation functions as well as flavor enhancement. Historians still argue whether this knowledge represented conscious understanding of antimicrobial properties or traditional practices that happened to achieve beneficial results. But evidence suggests that communities with access to specific herbs and spices achieved significantly better food preservation success rates than those relying solely on physical preservation methods. Root cellars and underground storage systems represent impressive engineering achievements that create controlled environments for long-term food storage using only hand tools and local materials. Your family's storage facilities must maintain stable temperatures, appropriate humidity levels, and adequate ventilation, while preventing access by rodents, insects, or larger animals that could consume or contaminate stored foods. These underground storage systems require understanding soil conditions, water table levels, and construction techniques that prevent structural collapse or water infiltration that could destroy entire food supplies. Inventory management becomes increasingly critical as winter approaches, and you must track food supplies against projected consumption rates to identify potential shortfalls before they become fatal problems. Your evening inventory work involves counting stored grains, assessing preserved meat supplies, evaluating vegetable storage conditions, and calculating whether available food will sustain your family through winter months. This analysis requires estimating consumption rates, predicting weather patterns, and planning for emergency situations that could extend winter survival periods beyond normal expectations. The social aspects of food storage involve complex negotiations with neighbors about sharing preservation facilities, coordinating group food processing activities, and maintaining reciprocal relationships that provide insurance against individual storage failures. Your family might share large preservation projects with neighbors, exchange different types of stored foods to ensure dietary variety, or participate in community storage systems that distribute risk across multiple families. These arrangements require trust, fair contribution, and social protocols that prevent conflicts over food resources when survival pressures intensify community tensions. Quality control during food preparation and storage requires constant vigilance against spoilage, contamination, or pest damage that could transform valuable food supplies into dangerous health hazards. Your evening work includes inspecting stored foods for signs of deterioration, removing damaged items before they contaminate healthy supplies, and adjusting storage conditions to prevent problems that could destroy months of careful preparation. Understanding the subtle signs of food spoilage could mean the difference between maintaining adequate nutrition and facing starvation during critical winter months when replacement foods aren't available. The evening fire crackles to life as your family gathers for the day's final meal. But this isn't just about consuming calories. It's the social centerpiece that transforms individual survival efforts into community bonds capable of sustaining Bronze Age villages through challenges that would destroy less cohesive groups. The flickering flames create intimate spaces where information flows, cultural knowledge transfers between generations, and entertainment provides psychological relief from the constant stress of survival in an unforgiving world. Your dinner conversation weaves together practical planning, social gossip, and storytelling traditions that preserve community wisdom while strengthening relationships essential for collective survival. The evening meal showcases whatever culinary creativity your family can manage with limited ingredients and simple cooking techniques, transforming basic grains, vegetables, and occasional meat into meals that provide both nutrition and pleasure despite resource constraints that would challenge modern gourmet chefs. Your cooking methods involve careful flame management, precise timing, and seasoning techniques that maximize flavor from minimal ingredients. The meal preparation itself becomes entertainment as family members contribute ingredients, share cooking responsibilities, and anticipate the evening's food through collaborative effort that reinforces family bonds while producing necessary nutrition. Storytelling traditions serve multiple functions that extend far beyond simple entertainment, preserving essential cultural knowledge, moral guidance, and community history through oral narratives that can't be written down or stored in libraries. The evening stories might include practical information about agricultural techniques, weather prediction, or survival strategies disguised as entertaining tales about heroes, gods, or community ancestors. These narratives also reinforce social values, explain community rules, and provide behavioral models that guide decision-making in complex situations, where traditional wisdom offers better guidance than individual judgment. Your family's evening entertainment reflects the sophisticated cultural life that Bronze Age communities developed despite their focus on survival necessities, creating music, games, and artistic expressions that provide psychological relief and social bonding opportunities essential for community cohesion. Musical instruments might include simple drums, flutes, or stringed instruments that accompany singing, dancing, or storytelling performances. Games could involve physical competitions, strategy challenges, or gambling activities that provide excitement, while teaching skills relevant to survival situations or social interaction. Mainstream archaeological evidence reveals that Bronze Age communities developed remarkably sophisticated entertainment traditions, including elaborate board games, musical compositions, and artistic productions that demonstrate cultural complexity, rivaling many later civilizations. Your evening activities might include playing strategy games that teach tactical thinking, participating in musical performances that strengthen community bonds, or creating artistic works that express individual creativity while contributing to community cultural wealth. These entertainment traditions represent significant investments of time and resources that communities considered essential for maintaining social stability and individual well-being. Here's an intriguing detail that artifact analysis has uncovered. Bronze Age communities apparently developed early forms of serialized storytelling, with complex narratives that continued across multiple evening sessions and involved audience participation that influenced story development. Historians still argue whether these interactive storytelling traditions represented conscious literary techniques or spontaneous community entertainment practices. But evidence suggests that communities with strong storytelling traditions maintained better social cohesion and cultural continuity than those with less developed narrative practices. Evening gathering also serves as informal community forums where family members share information gathered during the day's activities, discuss problems requiring collective solutions, and plan coordinated responses to challenges affecting multiple families. Your dinner conversation might include reports about agricultural conditions, updates on community members' health or personal situations, news about neighboring villages, or discussions about trade opportunities that could benefit everyone. These information exchanges help maintain community awareness and coordination essential for collective survival strategies. Children's participation in evening entertainment provides essential education about cultural values, social expectations, and community traditions that formal instruction alone couldn't provide effectively. Young people learn appropriate behavior through observation, practice social skills through interaction with adults, and absorb cultural knowledge through story participation and musical activities. The evening entertainment serves as informal schooling that teaches everything from practical skills and social protocols to artistic appreciation and cultural identity that shapes individual development within community contexts. The evening's social dynamics reveal complex relationships between family members, neighbors, and community leaders that influence everything from resource allocation and conflict resolution to marriage prospects and individual reputation. Your family's evening interactions demonstrate social competence, cultural knowledge, and community integration that affects your standing within village networks. Successful participation in evening entertainment activities enhances family reputation while providing opportunities for building relationships that could prove essential during emergencies or challenging periods requiring community support. Religious and spiritual elements often permeate evening entertainment through stories, songs, or rituals that connect community members to supernatural forces believed to influence survival prospects, weather patterns, or community fortune. Your evening activities might include prayers, offerings, or ceremonial practices that seek divine protection, express gratitude for daily survival, or request supernatural assistance with upcoming challenges. These spiritual practices provide psychological comfort while reinforcing community values and shared beliefs that contribute to social cohesion necessary for collective survival in uncertain environments. Darkness brings both relief from daylight labor and heightened awareness of supernatural forces that Bronze Age communities believe control everything from weather patterns and crop success to personal health and community fortune. Your evening spiritual practices represent insurance policies against cosmic forces that could destroy individual lives or entire communities through natural disasters, disease outbreaks, or social conflicts that exceed human ability to control or predict. These aren't casual religious preferences. They're essential survival strategies that connect your family to powerful spiritual forces capable of providing protection, guidance, and intervention during critical situations when purely human efforts prove inadequate for ensuring continued existence. The household shrine receives evening attention as you make offerings, recite prayers, and perform rituals that maintain your family's relationship with protective deities who guard against nighttime dangers and supernatural threats. Your offerings might include portions of food, drops of precious oils, or small handmade items that demonstrate respect and gratitude for divine protection received during the day's activities. These ritual practices require understanding complex spiritual protocols about appropriate offerings, correct timing, and proper ceremonial procedures that could determine whether supernatural forces provide continued protection or withdraw support that leaves your family vulnerable to spiritual and physical dangers. Protective rituals ward off malevolent spirits, evil influences, or supernatural attacks that Bronze Age communities believe become more dangerous during nighttime hours when darkness conceals spiritual threats and reduces human ability to detect or resist supernatural dangers. Your family might scatter protective herbs around the dwelling, recite incantations designed to repel harmful spirits, or perform ceremonial actions that create spiritual barriers against supernatural intrusion. These protective practices reflect sophisticated understanding of spiritual geography, supernatural behavior patterns, and ritual effectiveness that communities developed through generations of experience with spiritual threats. Community religious observances bring village members together for shared spiritual practices that reinforce collective identity while seeking divine protection for the entire community against external threats that could affect everyone simultaneously. Your participation in evening communal rituals demonstrates religious devotion, community membership, and shared commitment to spiritual practices that benefit collective welfare. These group ceremonies might involve collaborative prayers, synchronized ritual actions, or shared offerings that create spiritual bonds between community members, while appealing to supernatural forces for continued protection and prosperity. Mainstream religious archaeology reveals that Bronze Age communities developed remarkably sophisticated spiritual belief systems that integrated practical survival concerns with complex theological concepts about divine intervention, supernatural causation, and cosmic order that governed natural phenomena. Your evening spiritual practices might include prayers for specific outcomes like favorable weather, successful harvests, or protection from enemies, combined with more abstract religious concepts about maintaining harmony between human communities and supernatural forces that control fundamental aspects of existence, including life, death, and natural cycles. Here's a remarkable detail that ritual artifact analysis has revealed. Bronze Age communities apparently practiced forms of dream incubation, where individuals sought prophetic dreams or divine guidance through specific sleeping rituals, ceremonial preparations, and spiritual practices designed to facilitate supernatural communication during sleep. Historians still argue whether these dream practices represented genuine religious experiences or sophisticated psychological techniques for accessing unconscious problem-solving abilities. But evidence suggests that communities with strong dream traditions made more successful long-term decisions than those relying solely on conscious reasoning. Ancestor veneration plays essential roles in evening spiritual practices, as your family honors deceased relatives who continue influencing living family members through spiritual intervention, inherited wisdom, and supernatural protection that connects past and present generations. Your evening rituals might include offerings to ancestral spirits, recitation of family histories that preserve ancestor memory, or ceremonial practices that seek ancestral guidance for contemporary problems. These ancestor-focused practices provide psychological comfort while maintaining cultural continuity that preserves accumulated wisdom and family identity across generations. Seasonal spiritual observances adapt evening rituals to cosmic cycles that Bronze Age communities believe directly influence human survival prospects through supernatural forces that control agricultural success, weather patterns, and community fortune. Your spiritual practices might change based on lunar phases, agricultural seasons, or astronomical events that represent critical moments in cosmic cycles affecting earthly existence. Understanding these spiritual calendars requires sophisticated knowledge about celestial movements, seasonal timing, and ritual effectiveness that communities preserve through careful observation and traditional knowledge. The intersection of practical and spiritual concerns creates evening rituals that combine prayers for supernatural intervention with concrete actions designed to improve survival prospects through human effort supplemented by divine assistance. Your evening spiritual practices might include prayers for crop protection combined with practical pest control measures, requests for divine healing accompanied by traditional medical treatments, or spiritual preparations for trade journeys alongside careful material planning. These integrated approaches reflect understanding that survival requires both human competence and supernatural support working together. Individual spiritual practices provide personal connections to supernatural forces that supplement community religious activities with private devotions, personal prayers, and individual ritual practices that address specific concerns or spiritual needs. Your private evening spiritual time might involve personal prayers for family welfare, individual offerings to patron deities, or private ritual practices that seek divine guidance for personal decisions. These individual spiritual practices provide psychological comfort while maintaining personal relationships with supernatural forces that community religious activities alone couldn't adequately address. The straw sleeping mat welcomes your exhausted body as you settle into the familiar routine of preparing for sleep that represents both daily relief from survival pressures and nightly vulnerability to dangers that darkness conceals from human awareness. Your Bronze Age bedroom consists of whatever private space your family's dwelling provides, usually shared with multiple family members whose breathing, movement, and sleep sounds create the comforting background noise that indicates everyone survived another day in this challenging prehistoric world. The transition from consciousness to sleep requires letting go of the constant vigilance that keeps you alive during daylight hours, while maintaining enough awareness to respond to nighttime emergencies that could threaten family safety or community security. Sleep preparation involves securing your dwelling against intrusion by wild animals, hostile humans, or supernatural forces that Bronze Age communities believe become more active during darkness when normal protective measures lose effectiveness. Your evening security measures might include barricading doors, banking fires to provide continuous light, or positioning defensive weapons within easy reach of sleeping areas. These protective preparations reflect understanding that nighttime vulnerability extends beyond physical threats to include spiritual dangers that require different defensive strategies than daytime security concerns. The quality of Bronze Age sleep depends on factors that modern people rarely consider, including temperature control without central heating, protection from insects and parasites that thrive in organic bedding materials, and noise management in communities where thin walls provide minimal sound insulation between family living spaces. Your sleep comfort requires careful management of available bedding materials, strategic positioning to optimize warmth while maintaining ventilation, and acceptance of environmental conditions that would send contemporary people straight to hotels with better amenities and climate control systems. Dreams in Bronze Age communities carry significance that extends far beyond modern psychological concepts about unconscious processing or random neural activity during sleep cycles. Your dreams might be interpreted as divine communications, prophetic visions, or spiritual travels that provide guidance for practical decisions, warnings about future dangers, or insights about supernatural forces affecting community welfare. Dream interpretation requires understanding symbolic meanings, cultural contexts, and spiritual significance that communities preserve through traditional knowledge passed down from experienced dream readers and spiritual advisors. Mainstream sleep research suggests that Bronze Age communities probably experienced different sleep patterns than modern populations, with natural light cycles, physical exhaustion, and environmental conditions creating sleep rhythms that aligned more closely with seasonal changes and circadian rhythms unmodified by artificial lighting or electronic stimulation. Your sleep patterns might involve earlier bedtimes, longer winter sleep periods, and more consistent daily schedules that reflect natural biological rhythms rather than artificial social schedules that ignore physiological needs for adequate rest and recovery. Here's a fascinating detail that skeletal analysis has revealed. Bronze Age populations apparently experienced different sleep-related health patterns than modern people, with evidence suggesting better spinal alignment during sleep, but higher rates of sleep disruption from environmental factors like temperature changes, noise, or pest activity. Historians still argue whether Bronze Age sleep quality was generally better or worse than contemporary standards, but evidence clearly indicates that prehistoric sleep environments presented different challenges and benefits than modern sleeping conditions with advanced mattress technology and environmental controls. Family sleeping arrangements reflect social hierarchies, practical considerations, and cultural values that govern Bronze Age household organization, with sleeping positions indicating status, age, and family relationships, while maximizing security and resource efficiency. Your family's sleeping arrangement might place the most vulnerable members in the most protected positions, while adult males sleep near entrances where they can respond quickly to external threats. These sleeping arrangements require balancing individual comfort with collective security concerns that affect entire family survival prospects. Nighttime community security involves coordinated watch systems, alarm protocols, and emergency response procedures that protect entire villages against threats that could affect multiple families simultaneously. Your community might maintain night guards, organized patrol schedules, or early warning systems that alert everyone to dangers requiring collective defensive responses. Participating in these community security measures demonstrates good citizenship while ensuring that your family benefits from collective protection against threats that individual families couldn't handle alone. The psychological aspects of Bronze Age sleep include managing anxiety about future survival prospects, processing daily stresses that could affect decision-making abilities, and maintaining mental health necessary for effective functioning in challenging survival environments. Your evening mental preparation for sleep might involve reviewing the day's successes and failures, planning tomorrow's priorities, or engaging in mental practices that promote psychological resilience and emotional stability. These psychological aspects of sleep preparation reflect understanding that mental health directly affects survival prospects in environments where poor judgment or emotional instability could have fatal consequences. Planning for tomorrow begins during the transition to sleep as you mentally organize upcoming tasks, anticipate potential challenges, and prepare strategies for dealing with whatever difficulties the next day might present. Your evening planning might involve reviewing weather indicators, assessing resource availability, or considering social obligations that could affect tomorrow's activities. This mental preparation helps ensure that you wake with clear priorities and efficient strategies for maximizing productivity during the limited daylight hours available for essential survival activities. As consciousness fades and sleep takes hold, your mind releases the day's accumulated stress, while your body recovers from the physical demands that Bronze Age survival imposes on human endurance and resilience. The gentle sounds of your family's peaceful breathing, the familiar crackle of banked fires, and the distant sounds of your village settling into nighttime quiet create a lullaby of survival that signals another successful day in this ancient world where tomorrow's dawn represents both hope and renewed challenge. Your dreams might carry you forward through imagined futures where crops grow abundantly, children laugh safely, and communities prosper without the constant threat of disaster that shadows Bronze Age existence. These dreams of tomorrow blend realistic hopes with impossible fantasies, creating mental landscapes where survival stress temporarily dissolves into peaceful visions of security and abundance that keep hope alive despite daily reminders of life's fragility. The soft rhythm of your breathing gradually deepens as sleep provides the restoration necessary for facing another day in this demanding prehistoric world, where survival requires strength, wisdom, and cooperation that modern people can barely imagine. Your body settles into the ancient rhythms of human rest, connecting you to countless generations who found peace in similar straw beds, dreaming similar dreams of survival and prosperity under the same stars that have witnessed humanity's long struggle to create safe, productive communities capable of supporting families through the endless challenges of existence in an uncertain world. And so your Bronze Age day comes to its gentle close, the weight of survival slowly lifting from your shoulders as sleep wraps around you like the warmest woolen blanket your village weaver could craft. The sounds of your ancient world fade into soft whispers, the last ember settling in the hearth, the distant call of a night bird, the peaceful breathing of your family members who have also survived to see another day's end. Your body sinks deeper into the straw, muscles finally releasing the tension that comes from a life where every choice matters, every season brings new challenges, and every morning offers both promise and peril. The stars above your Bronze Age village shine with the same light that illuminates your modern world, connecting you across thousands of years to ancestors who faced their own daily struggles with courage, ingenuity, and hope. Their legacy lives on in the cities we've built, the technologies we've developed, and the communities we've created through the same human spirit that helped Bronze Age families survive and thrive in their challenging world. Let your breathing slow now, matching the gentle rhythm of that ancient night. Feel the deep satisfaction that comes from a day well lived, work well done, and family safely gathered around the eternal human hearth. The Bronze Age villager within you has earned this rest, this peace, this moment of quiet satisfaction before tomorrow's adventures begin. Sleep well, knowing that human resilience, creativity, and love have carried us through millennia of challenges and will continue to guide us through whatever tomorrows await. The ancient world grows quiet around you, and your modern dreams blend with Bronze Age starlight in the timeless dance of human rest and renewal.